I'm Jordan Brookes, and I'm doing a show called Fontanelle at the Soho Theatre. It starts on the 13th of February. It runs for 2 weeks. Is that
And
right?
what can you? Yeah, no, that's great. What's the show all about?
So it's supposed to be a show about the Titanic and the sinking of the Titanic, but it's not. It sort of is and isn't about that. The premise is that I went to see. There's a Titanic musical
Yeah,
that came out in I think maybe like the 80s, and it's still running from time to time. It's still even recently. It's been sort of it's toured,
yeah, we've had it on
but
Artspod. Yeah,
yeah, but I was sort of unimpressed by it, or at least my online my on stage persona was unimpressed by it, and so I arrogantly thought, well, I could probably do a better job. And so the premise of the show is that I've come up with my own Titanic musical, but I'm naturally not that interested in the Titanic at all. And so yeah, so it's sort of it sort of becomes about our obsession with tragic events and the way that we'll flock to them and dissect them, and we'll sort of pour over it. And even now, even over 100 years on, people are still obsessed with the Titanic and will still come up with new theories. There's something recently came out about how the whole sinking of the Titanic was an insurance claim and all this stuff. So there's still this kind of feverish obsession with it, and so the show is more about exploring that, and and then it's also about masculinity and getting older and what sort of I'm 38, and so I can see it's not that I think I'm old, but I'm starting to understand what it means to get old. And so the show is also about that, and sort of it's also kind of exploring
but
getting to a certain age and looking at your life and thinking, is this it?
but ultimately, it's a comedy, is it?
Yeah. To clarify, all of this is hopefully funny. It's all supposed to be in the service of a joke ultimately. But yeah. I think hopefully it's funny as well.
Yeah, when you were saying that, we have this, all these tragedies turned into musicals. I was just waiting for someone to start Mossad the musical, the Israeli Special Forces or something. But
I mean, we're not far off, to be honest. I mean, it's not, nothing is surprising now. Whenever it's given the musical treatment, people just sort of. I'm not even sure if people can be bothered to roll their eyes. It feels like an inevitability that something is going to be given the musical treatment, and yeah, I guess I find that really interesting. Why are we doing that? And so that's sort of what the show's about.
and so you're from a sort of stand-up background,
Mm.
and so are you from a musical background?
No, not at all. I can't really sing, so.
Excellent.
So it's very much out of my comfort zone, but I yeah, it's mostly stand up, but it's never been. I've never really done like traditional stand up in the sort of in the most conventional sense. But I've never done a musical before. But yeah, I was just really interested in doing something.
But this was an Edinburgh show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it was at the Edinburgh Fringe last August. Yeah.
And how did it go down?
It was good. I think it was really fun. I think it was well received, and people seem to really like it. And it's full of nice surprises, and there's lots going on, and so it's a lot to cram into 1 hour. And obviously at the Fringe, even though you have an hour slot, the show can't actually be an hour long. It has to be 55 minutes or 56 minutes, whatever. So it's a lot to cram in, but it was good. Yeah, people seem to really like it. So yeah, I'm
And so
glad.
where the show that you're starting on the 13th of Feb, where's that at?
That's at the Soho Theatre in London, where I've done a couple of shows before, and yeah, it's a really nice venue. There's nothing else like it in London in terms of being able to put on a comedy show that has a regular audience, and yeah, so I'm really delighted to be bringing it there.
Okay, so we'll just switch the questioning slightly to
Okay.
say you're a 38-year-old man doing musicals in London, but from when you were 5 or 6 years old, how did you sort of end up doing what you're doing?
Honestly, I don't know. I was I I guess I was kind of funny, but I really liked comedy. You know, growing up, I really loved like Red Dwarf. I was absolutely obsessed with Red Dwarf growing up, and I was just really interested in writing comedy. So I used to write little comedy scripts, and even as a teenager, I was trying to write things. And so I knew I wanted to go into that area, and but it was hard to obviously it's hard to get anything made, and so I'd send scripts off, and I'd get some nice feedback. Some people would be really nice enough to reply, and I remember getting a nice response from someone at the BBC who'd read it, who'd read a script that I'd written and really liked it, and invited me in for a chat, and that was really nice. And he didn't have to do that. And I think after a bit of a sort of back and forth, he basically said, "Look, we're not going to make anything. We're not going to commission this, but maybe consider getting into performance. Maybe consider doing." Going down that road. And so at that point, I'd been making little online videos as well as a sort of character piece, putting them on YouTube. No one was really watching them, but they were fun to do, and so I got a bit more confident with performance. And then I had a friend of mine who I'd met at college, was also a really funny guy and comedian called Charlie Webster, who's still going, really really funny. And we basically kind of egged each other on into giving stand up a go. And we were living together in Cardiff, and yeah, we just said let's just do it. So we started doing these open mic gigs.
And did you ever sort of get a normal job to just fund it, or did you do sort
Oh
of
yeah. I've had
things?
to do it's been yeah, everything has been supplemented up until maybe like the last few years. I've always had other jobs going on, and I studied animation at uni, so I did a little bit of work in animation, but mostly it's just been like, hospitality jobs and service jobs and stuff, just to sort of pay the rent. But
Well, you probably use that, and you do stand up around the country in various clubs and things, and probably use that material from your other life, as it were, do you?
yeah, for sure. I think it's really important. I mean, even now, like I'm fortunate enough for the moment to be able to do comedy sort of just about full time, but a day job isn't far away from my thoughts. Not just for money, but also just for like doing something. I think it's
Sanity.
for sanity. There's always a risk of getting too caught up in yourself and your creative endeavors, and I think it can become a bit too narrow.
So when will you head up to London to rehearse the show?
So we've got a couple of rehearsals in early Feb. So in a couple of weeks, there's some new songs in there. There's some new bits and pieces, and because the show's a little bit longer now, so it was an hour at the Fringe, and that now it's I think 75 minutes at Soho Theatre. So a bit more space to play with, and so yeah, I've put in a couple of new songs, and yeah.
And do you have musicians, or is it a cappella?
We had musicians. We had this guy, this great guy called Jake Roach, who is a musician and turns out to have been a fan of mine, and I was also a fan of his. And he got wind that I was looking to incorporate some music into my shows, and so he got in touch and said, "I'd love to work with you," and so we've been working together on that. I say working together. I mean, he's the musician, so he's been mostly doing. He's done 95% of it, but yeah, he's just amazing. He's so talented, and so the music that he's done is just like far beyond my expectations. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's great
And
it's
how
just
did it
great
end
to
up?
work with someone as well.
How did the show end up with the name Fontanelle? Because isn't that the small bit on a baby's head?
It is, yeah. Well, I had a bit about a fontanelle, and I think because the show was it's about men and it's about vulnerability, and so that kind of made sense to me. And also because when I was looking into the Titanic, there was often this talk of how the iceberg really hit the Titanic's weak spot. And so the theory goes, if they'd actually hit the iceberg head on, it wouldn't have sunk. People may still have died, but nowhere near as many.
Sounds
And
like good comedy material.
yeah, this is really funny stuff for audiences to hear. So I just thought, yeah, maybe there's a connection there. But I just really liked the word fontanelle as well. So yeah, the show is called Fontanelle. It's a musical spectacular of sorts, and it's running from the 13th of February to the 1st of March at the Soho Theatre in London.